Hello, it's the afternoon evening of 8/8/24, August 8th, and haven't done a video in 2 or 3 weeks, so I thought I would walk through and show some things maybe kind of quickly today. Haven't been spending much time with this garden this summer, but just to point out a few things that are happening while they're still going. Got these ornamental alliums for my mom. She had some and they really spread around at her place. I took a few babies and those are cool looking. Put some of those in the vegetable garden too. There's some liatris there, some echinacea I transplanted. Rosa Sharons are still flowering, kind of on the way out maybe. This surface berry is losing a few leaves. It's been still quite a good summer for rainfall. Cannot complain about the rainfall. Just very few dry spells, but nothing major. Cup plants are still pretty much in full flower. You'll see lots of those around the garden. Bees are loving them, and they're just a great wildlife plant overall. The monardas are about done. You might see some of those here and there. But yeah, check out these cup plants. Got honeybees, bumblebees, little native bees. It's quite a festival. Kind of been calling it the year of no prunus. I have no peaches, no plums really on any of my trees except a couple of little beach plums. No cherries to speak of. The American plums are pretty much barren, so something happened this year with the prunus. My Rometnia quince has a couple of fruits on it, but nothing major. Maybe taking a year off. It's got a lot of sprouting around the base. I think it's got some injury on the trunk. Have to trim all that crap off. There's some late butterfly milkweed and some fireweed, I think they call that stuff. And we're kind of past the peak of wild senna flowering. I took a video of that separately about a week ago when it looked really good. Now the blooms are fading quite a bit, but there's probably still a little activity. But these are about 5 feet tall this year, which is taller than they normally get in most years. So as we look there, there's some more cup plant. The green-headed coneflower is going to start flowering soon. These are what will become the flowers there. So in the next week or so, I'll be watching for those. But yeah, this area probably looked better a week or two ago. It still looks pretty good, but you know, as the monarda fades out, you lose that punch of purple. Lots of echinaceas still going. The cup plants actually have sort of fallen over into the paths in certain places. I've snapped a couple of them off and used them as mulch. Yeah, there's still a little bee activity on the wild senna, but you can tell that the flowers are about spent. The big blue stem and little blue stem are both starting to put out flowers and getting pretty tall. There's a little bee moment here. Check that out. So these tall things, these are the flowers of big blue stem, and they're about 6 to 8 feet tall, a lot of them, and they're kind of leaning over into the paths in areas, which is not ideal, especially on a wet morning. So I'll probably come through with the sickle and trim them up a little bit to get them off the paths, because I don't enjoy walking through that mess. Down this way, not much to see. Anacisop is still flowering there, the purple spikes. You got a few late monardas here. Of course, the beauty, the kind of fractal beauty of an echinacea flower. It's so pretty. They smell great too. You just have to watch, because they'll poke you in the nose when you go in for a sniff. There's a bee working on anacisop. Hopefully we won't get too much glare from the sunlight. Oh, there's a whole bunny over here. Got lots of wildlife in the garden this year, lots of deer especially. Pears are pretty heavy up there. And a fair amount of bunnies, woodchucks, lots of stuff. Deer are a bit of a pain. Trying to live with them, but they annoy me quite a bit. So as we come this way, oh, we've got the beginnings of the downy sunflower. Those are about waist high, and they're starting to open up. Real cute flowers. This is about how big they are. They have a nice honey scent, and they have these sort of woolly leaves. Maybe it doesn't really come through on the video, but it's probably a somewhat drought adapted plant. Those kind of grayish fuzzy leaves. This chestnut tree, whose growth form I don't really like, it's set a few nuts this year, but we'll see if they actually have nuts in them. Last year they didn't. They've had fake dud chestnuts for a few years now. Apples, overloaded Jonagold in the middle, overloaded whatever that crappy one is on the south side. That one has a few different apples. It's got some red ones up top, and those have been falling off, and I've been eating a few of them, and they're pretty good. Whatever that graft was. And then over here, if I can pan around, this, whoa, sorry, blue jay, Heliopsis, false sunflower, and then these things, these are a different type of perennial sunflower. I want to say it's called either Western sunflower. My friend Mark Ludwig gave me these, and they've been kind of slow to get going here. Only about waist tall. I don't remember what species this is. I think I had some of these from Oikos one time. They were called giant sunflower, but they never got anywhere near gigantic in size. Maybe it's a different species than that one, I don't know. I'm going to walk over here and see these apples for a second. And I want to show you the flowers of, oh, there's a big bumble on the Monara. These groundnut flowers, this is Apios americana. You can see them there on the mannequin cherry. Boy, the bumblebees are really going to town on this Monarda. I don't want to step on anybody, so I'm going to go around this way. I have just oceans of Monarda at different places around this garden, and that wins me a lot of points with the bee community. So this tree was a Golden Delicious. This is still what a lot of the top of it is, but then this south side here, it's got some red apples up there, so that branch somehow was all a graft, I think. I don't think it's a sport. We did a bunch of grafting, Trevor and Mark. I think I did a couple grafts onto it too. You can see some overgrown grafts. These are from probably 2016 or something. It was a long time ago. So that's something. And yeah, if I shake this, I can shake it without, it's got some southwest injury there. Let's see if something will fall down. No, nothing good fell down. But yeah, birds have been pecking on these fruits pretty well, which is a little bit annoying. They've ruined some nice fruits, but that's okay. I guess that's what birds like to do. So I'll show these. Got some good blackberries over here. These are, there's sort of two kinds. There's triple crown, and there's a primocane one called Prime Jim. Now these aren't even that big compared to some of the ones I've been getting the last few days that were, I'd say, double the size of these. But these are pretty much thornless. You'll see this is the triple crown. And I didn't do any pruning, any thinning, any kind of management whatsoever. So they're, considering all that, they're doing okay. And then these over here, which are a little thorny, not extremely, but a little bit. This is Prime Jim, and I don't recommend this one, and the berries don't taste very good, and have a really short window of ripening. They're a little bit smaller, but they're okay. They do, the main praise that you can sing about those is that they do produce every year, even if you have a hard winter frost. I'm going to show, this is a native pollinator box. I should have thrown all these reeds out or moved them somewhere to make fresh ones for this year, and I didn't do that, so hopefully I'm not spreading disease around. But these are all filled again. There's some weird little bees there. But anyway, I usually have pretty good occupancy on these bee nests that you make out of the invasive Phragmites reeds. These apples are tiny and not good. I'm thinning some off, but you can kind of see what ugly, crappy apples you get without spraying in most years here, at least on my site. Now, if you have varieties that are a little bit more disease resistant, you'll have better looking apples, but that still doesn't account for bug damage. So even if you can keep the diseases off, you still got the bugs to worry about. And the bugs do a lot of damage, and so do the birds. So yeah, I'm not going to show much in the nursery here. There's not much to show. It's not been a great year for the nursery. I have not grown much stuff. Here's a little Tuna sinensis baby. This bed, there's a few currants and things in here, a few elderberries, a few hazelnuts, grapes, nothing too major. There's some more of those funky groundnut flowers. Those are cool. So yeah, my tanks are full. We've had good rainfall this year. Got some willows here. How do I want to go here? I don't think I'll walk through that stuff. Well, maybe I'll show these grapes because these are sort of ripening up probably. So there's these wild fox grapes, which I've not done anything to improve or protect or preserve. And so some of them are turning colors, probably with some affliction or bug damage or something. Falling off, that's hard, and it fell off my hand. But yeah, that's a wild fox grape. It just showed up. It's what the Concord grapes were bred from. And they taste a lot like they're large like a Concord grape, and they taste basically like a Concord grape. So in this garden, you've got a Rosa Sharon there, Monarda that's done. Tuna sinensis has grown pretty well this year with all the rain. I guess the kind of, what do I want to say, modest but pretty flowers of our native clematis Virgensbauer. Not super showy, but you do see drifts of this as you drive along the roadsides. It's a fairly common native vine. Not much of a scent, just a little bit. And towering over it, we've got some willow that I planted here. And there's the wild grape, and then this is a Hochberg elderberry that it's kind of growing onto. So yeah, the Virgensbauer makes a pretty show later in the season, before the asters and things start coming on. And there's a bee getting something out of it. So let's see. I don't think I'll walk all the way over to the pawpaw area over here, because all I would show would be my two pawpaws that may have survived, if they have survived. I haven't been over to check, so I don't want to waste your time or mine. More wild grapevine, that kind of fuzzy on the bottom, so that could also be a fox grape. I think it's a different vine than the other one. But yeah, some of these wild grapes, I'm just letting them go for a time, seeing what happens, and then if there's something that's not good, if it's like a riverbank grape, I really don't need more of those, so I probably would cut that out, or just use it as mulch or something. So over here we've got, you see autumn olive bushes in different places that are, I've been eating autumn olive fruits for probably 2 or 3 weeks now. They're ripening. Some early goldenrod there. Pawpaws are way back over that way. Got a tulip tree. Lots of stuff in these areas. It's pretty dense. Plantings, self-planted things. I planted some things back here. There's a lot of natural regeneration, afforestation. Here's a nitrogen fixing false indigo that's kind of reseeded itself prolifically in this area, which is cool. I'm happy to have that. You can always chop that and drop it as mulch. That's what this stuff is. These are dewberries in the ground cover layer. Here's a little autumn olive seedling. That could be a good candidate for grafting over to Gumi next year if it grows like, say, pencil diameter. And speaking of that, here's one that we did that with last year. The graft is there. It looks like it was maybe a, what do they call that? Cleft graft, where you split it down the middle, and all this stuff is Gumi. So maybe next year that'll fruit, or if not, maybe in 2 years. So that's worked out okay where I've had pretty good success with that. That red fruit over there is high bush cranberry. So, you know, the nasty European high bush cranberry species, not the good native one. Though I did get one of those from my friend that I'm gonna plant soon. Here we've got some more autumn olives that are edible. They already have been red for a few weeks. And I will wade through this area here. It's pretty dense in here now. The little pawpaw graft I did hasn't grown that much. This real productive hazelnut bush is doing pretty well this year. It's got some branches bending over. You can kind of see the glare will hold off. Pretty heavy set of fruit on that. So this is a good one. Branches bending down. They might almost touch the ground eventually. Yeah, it'll be another, what is it? Probably a month or so before we're harvesting hazelnuts. Once these outer husks start drying down a little bit, and they'll kind of open up somewhat, and then you can start picking them then. If the squirrels were really bad, then you could start picking them earlier to get them away from the squirrels. Here's a graft of Asian pear onto celery that was done this spring. That one is maybe one I did, son of a bitch, I got bit by something. Did last year. There's a pawpaw that's growing pretty well. Mosquitoes are kind of getting bad. It didn't have much mosquito trouble earlier in the season, but it is late summer almost, so they are sort of finally coming around. This is crown vetch. So now we'll walk over here. We've got a couple goomy grafts. This one here has got some pretty good growth. We should snap this autumn olive off. We don't want that. And we've got one there that's growing okay. I did sneak a red raspberry over here, heritage red raspberry, and I think maybe the deer haven't found it yet. Sorry for the bad camera work. There's a couple that are not ripe yet, but yeah, the deer seem to murder those things where they discover them. So I've got to find places around the place where the deer can't get to them as easily. Now that's got monarda growing up around it, so I think that's giving it some protection. So as we go over here, chestnuts look like they're doing okay this year. I've got some burrs setting on a few of them. Not an insane crop. There's one there. There's probably a few burrs in this tree. I think in my last video I showed too that the early flush of growth this year was pretty ragged. You see a lot of tattered leaves, but then the second flush is pretty smooth and nice. So whatever was happening earlier in the season with bugs or disease seemed to kind of work itself out later in the season, and had some really impressive growth on a few tree species. Now if I'd made this video a week ago or 4 or 5 days ago, you would have seen some incredible bee action. I could splice a video into this if I want to get real technical. I could copy and paste it in there. But just to show you the very kind of tail end of this flowering. Now it was humming over here like somebody was flying a drone right overhead. That's how loud it was. But yeah, now it's slowed down quite a bit. But all these kind of candles that are glowing were just totally abuzz. And these flowers aren't super showy. They are attractive. They don't really have any fragrance to them. But man, the bees really do love them when they are mid-bloom. So these are getting old and kind of turning over to what the fruits will look like. Reddish little fruits like a staghorn sumac, except they're smooth. They're not fuzzy. So these two are still kind of fresh looking and yellow. Cut plants again. Have to decide what to do with this big walnut tree. It seems like it does not really bear any nuts, and it shouldn't be a pollination issue because there are other walnuts nearby. And it's a pretty big influence on this part of the garden, so maybe girdling it or cutting it down one of these years soon. Here's a gumi graft. That's an Illinois everberry mulberry graft. Did have a couple of fruits off of that this year, but nothing major as the graft gets established. This timber, this is not a good time of day to show these trees because they're pretty shadowy and the mosquitoes are bad. But there are quite a number of burrs up in the tree here. And then the ironweed, that's what this stuff is. It's kind of in full flower now, or just coming into full flower. I kind of let that go in this area, and I do mow a little bit of it where it's kind of growing right in my paths, because I have to mow the paths a few times a year. But yeah, it's kind of spreading out, and it's spreading out to other places in the garden. And here it's about 6 feet tall. And the chinkapin chestnuts, let me see if I can get into the sunlight so I get stung by less mosquitoes here. They're forming. It remains to be seen how good the pollination was this year, but that's what those are. And I like that I'm getting kind of a little moss ground cover in places that I mow. I like to see that. I'd much rather have that than grass. There's a chinkapin that's got a real heavy load of nuts on it. This chestnut's putting on some good growth now that it's been protected a bit from that cage. I'm not going to walk down there. There's some persimmons I grafted. Here you see there's a mix of, some still flowering and already turning to fruit specimens of winged sumac. So it's kind of an interesting mix. Those are almost red. But yeah, there's a lot of that. I'd say there's probably a good acre of winged sumac on this site. And I like it. I just am kind of letting it go wherever it shows up. And, I like to cut it down and use it as a chop and drop mulch. Works really well for that. And it also helps move the whole system toward a woodland ecology rather than a grassland ecology, because that's kind of what it started as. It was just a grassy old field, and now it's sort of kind of turning into a woodland in places. So this apple had quite a few apples on it. I thinned them, but boy are they bug eaten. God. Now this was all from a graft that I did. Now this one looks like a bird got onto it. That's all rotten. So I don't know what variety this is. Obviously should have done a little bit more thinning, especially where two apples grow together. You always get this codling moth or something that likes to be in that little tight space and ruins the fruit. But yeah, anyway, so I think apples are kind of a wash here most years. Not hardly worth growing because they're just too full of bug problems or disease problems. So I'm not going to walk down that side path. Nothing much to show there. Here we've got another, now that it's caged, good growth on gumi. Grafted onto autumn olive, more fireweed, which is an annual that shows up in disturbed soils. This is a walnut here. That's an oikos walnut. I want to say maybe it's a hybrid between black and English walnut. I will probably remove this cedar that's growing to the south of it maybe this coming winter to give it some more sunlight, and then this autumn olive here too is kind of sacrificial. Here I've got black locust suckering in a place where I don't have many other locusts growing. That's because I planted some over this way, and then some of them got injured or disturbed somehow, and that's initiated some root runners suckering. So here's some red ripe fruit on autumn olive that could be picked. I've been nibbling as I walk around. Love the fruits of those. I did a chestnut graft here, and it's growing just a little bit. I need to put some protection on that. It's not growing very convincingly, but I need to get a cage on it so I can protect what's there. Some kind of hybrid walnut, I think. Over here we've got a Japanese walnut, a Buart nut, or a butter heart if you prefer. Hybrid between Japanese walnut and aka heart nut and a native butternut. This hazelnut has a good crop this year. Now this last year was kind of the first year this really had anything to show for itself after, oh god, a good decade of being here. So I'm gonna take some notes on this, see if it's any good, what the nut quality is like. You can see this branch is like laying on the ground. It's pretty heavy with a load of crop on there, and so are these. So that's a good one. At least maybe late to come into bearing, but impressive once it started. Here's a serviceberry that's about dead. Deer problems. Need to put more cages out. Now, speaking of cages, here's an apple that's growing beautifully once I got a cage around it. So all this growth is from this year. I think it was grafted last year or 2 years ago, but the deer had it down to a stub. It could never get more than an inch out of the tree tube. So now it's growing pretty well. And the old oak savanna back here, not too much excitement here. I wouldn't say I need to mow this path again. The little blue stem is really coming back in force. It's a late season, cool season grass. Maybe you can see the tall, like candle stalk on top of that fir tree. I think that's a fir, spruce fir, I don't know. But it's grown about 2.5 feet this season. So it shows you that we've had a good year for rainfall. There are some oaks here. Not really going to mess around with them. Nothing really to brag on there. Now the little blue stem here is about 5 feet tall, which is taller than normal. Again, accounting for the nice rainfall we've had. There's some birds up on the power lines. So I'm wading through this tall grass. I'll probably have some ticks on me. But I did some persimmon grafts. This is all pretty much persimmons here, except that wild black cherry. That's a wild black cherry. There's some nitrogen fixers. There's a alder. Basically, it's all, 90% persimmons, American persimmon. And so, put a lot of wood chips on the ground here and a lot of logs, which you can't see in this video, but maybe in the winter you could. Trying to boost the fertility and boost the productivity. And it seems like it's maybe helping. I don't know. Hopefully. So this is a graft from last year. I cut it way back because it had grown so much that I thought it was definitely going to break off. Now the graft is healed over just about there. It's got just a little bit more to go, but it had way too much top growth. I was really worried about it snapping. So, and I'm glad I did that because we've had so many storms with heavy winds and heavy rains that have snapped off lots and lots of trees and actually uprooted a lot of trees in this area. So this is a fruiting female, and the fruits are, I don't know, ping pong ball size right now. I don't know if they're going to get much bigger than this. I don't know how much they add size and diameter this late in the season, but they're getting a little color on them. There is a little bit of like possible bug damage here and there, so we'll see. I probably should put some bags around some of those, see how they turn out. I'm hoping to sample a few of them. There's some more hazelnuts that are bearing pretty well here. That one's okay. That one's got not much of a crop on it. So yeah, there's one hazelnut, or I'm sorry, one persimmon there that's bearing, and then there's one here that's also bearing, but I'm not going to walk over and show that. Probably showed it the last video. Got a few rosin weeds blooming in the hedgerow, some Monarda, of course wild carrot blooming everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. I let those go. Those are pretty harmless to me. And then, yeah, this is going to be a little shorter video than normal, thank God. They're pretty interminable usually. And there's not that much to show. I guess one thing I could say is since I have not spent much time at all here this summer, obviously I haven't done much mowing. The system is kind of, a lot of it is to the point where it's sort of self-sufficient. There's not that much more that I need to do for it. The plants are there, the roots are in the ground. If it rains, they grow better. If it doesn't, they probably still survive. Here's a big heavy load on this branch. They've been here enough years that one's bent to the ground too. But they don't need to be babied too much, even though the site is not very favorable for growing. They've gotten over the hurdles, the initial hurdles, the deer browse level, whatever, droughty summers, polar vortex winters, etc., etc. So now they're well enough established that I don't need to hold their hand all the time. So that's nice. That feels liberating in a way. Yeah, here's some more of the downy sunflower, and you can see, I think there was a lot of it going up and down this row at one time, but there's only a handful of plants still left. So that's kind of filling in nicely. Pop these autumn olives in my mouth. Ooh, sour, but good, refreshing. So yeah, I'll just walk back toward the road here. We'll call it a day. I had to do some mowing. Hate mowing, but necessary evil when you live in society. Sorry, I couldn't get that word out. So yeah, probably within the next month, be a lot of hazelnuts to pick. So I'll be inviting over some friends who want to pick hazelnuts. This one's got a pretty good crop on it again. This one has larger nuts, but they're not the most impressive nut. When you crack them out, they're more of a shower than they are an eater. So yeah, it doesn't quite feel like fall yet, but you can tell summer is kind of winding down. Days are getting shorter. We're kind of over the hump. Here's another hazelnut with a pretty good load of fruit on it, or nuts rather. I want to show this grape before I sign off here. I don't know if this is if these leaves all got eaten up by insects or deer or what, because deer definitely do browse grape plants. See, the leaves here at the ground are okay, but then all the ones higher up, which is kind of like deer level, are missing. And it looks like there's some paths worn around here, so it makes me think it could be deer. Maybe this one plant is particularly attractive, but there's like no foliage covering the fruit, which is ridiculous. It looks really funny. I don't think it's going to kill this plant because this is a really vigorous plant. I actually call it Vigoro because I don't know, I lost track of the name of this one, the only grape plant that does well here, and I've lost track of the variety. But I've propagated it a few times and given it away to other people. But it has good grapes, and it's the only one that's ever really fruited in any quantity for me. And by quantity, I mean like a few bunches here and there, not, you know, massive production. Don't know how to prune grapes that well. But yeah, that's curious. And here we've got lots of disease problems or bug problems, I don't know which. I meant to put bags around these things like a month and a half ago and didn't do it, so here we go. I probably am reaping what I have sown, or I will not be reaping what I haven't sown or something. But anyway, yeah, that's about how things are looking in early to mid-August. I'll make another video in a few weeks probably. Thanks for watching. Oh, I did plant one tomato plant in this mound of shredded leaf mold, and I have not watered it once. Haven't done anything with it. Now, the deer don't eat this tomato plant, but they did eat the 2 pepper plants I put here. There's one ripe tomato, but it's a lot of good growth on it. I need to learn how to prune tomatoes better so I can actually manage the green growth and get more fruit production and not just focus totally on growing leaves. But that's not a huge tomato, but it's a good size. I think it's ripe. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and if you're in the area, come walk through. It's nice to see still for a while. There's a lot of things happening, even if I'm not here. All right, thanks. Bye.